So what does it mean to be a Stella Nyanzi, for example? What does it mean to throw caution to the wind?
Welcome to another episode of Black No Sugar. We are shooting at a Left Book Cafe on Kanjocha Street. Today we talk about how we can use our art, our different kinds of creative arts, to promote social justice or to shape political narratives and social discourse. And there's been a new wave of artists joining politics, joining elective politics from positions like the presidency with Bobi Wine, member of parliament, district and village level positions. And I know that art has always been intertwined with politics, sometimes even an enemy of it. And today we have Daphne Arinda, who is a poet and a lawyer who I think has done some work around using her art to promote or to talk about social justice issues. Welcome, Daphne.
Thank you.
Please tell us briefly about yourself.
I'm Daphne Arinda, and like you say, I'm a poet, a lawyer. I'm a mother to a beautiful daughter, Nyonyezi.
Okay, welcome
That's
to the
pretty
show.
much it, yes.
Welcome to the show. So I want to know, let's just get right into it. How are you using your art to talk about social justice issues? I know usually when people think politics, they think I have to be a certain way to join politics or to talk about these things. I mean, politics doesn't have to be what Bobi Wine is doing or what all these other artists are doing. But how can we, use that thing to talk about the social justice? Because even Bobi Wine didn't just come up from, one day and become a member of parliament or a presidential aspirant. He used to sing about social justice. So how are you doing? How are you using your art?
Well, I'll say it's one, it's hard to live in a political time and not to comment about it if you're a creator, yeah? Because you're fed by your environment, you're fed by the people that surround you. So for me, my art, well, I don't necessarily set out to say now I'm going to write a political poem and I'm going to become opposition or pro-government, but because you're writing from inspiration, you're writing, your psyche is influenced by the political things that are happening around you. So sometimes you find in your poems, you may use images of, let's say, violence that's happening around, or you may use images of peace if that's what you have around.
Yeah.
But on a more concentrated level, when I have done political engagements as an artist, it has been with NGOs. And I think artists, we usually need a platform to engage with the rest of society, yeah? On your own, yes, you can create and do powerful things, but then how does that work reach out to the rest of the world? Yeah. When Bobi Wine was singing his music here, we're listening to it, we're enjoying it, it was powerful, but then when he creates a platform for himself, let's say a political party or a movement, then his message becomes even stronger. It goes out stronger into the community. Yeah. So the same thing with me. Also, my poetry gets stronger when I collaborate with a platform that can take me to the people, and usually it's an NGO that deals with social justice. Yeah.
Tendo, you write quite a bit, and I think writing is also an art. How are you using your art? I know that a lot of people write, but then we shelve whatever it is that we do, but how can we use that skill or talent to speak more about these issues?
One, I think I write about around gender most times, but also because it's what I'm interested in. But also one, I think that when we think about politics, we think, like you said, about parliament and President Museveni and the like. But I think that politics is things that are around us that we engage with on a daily basis that enable us, decide, but also things that set rules and laws for us. Like the fact that I can't just walk around Kamwocha, maybe, because there is something that prevents me from walking around Kamwocha. The things that prevent me from engaging maybe with my family the way that I would want to engage. So for me, politics is that. And I don't look at it basically as a new art, because I think our cultures have that stuff embedded in it. things like proverbs and folktales and riddles, these things have existed and they've always informed, you know, politics. Actually, in the court of Buganda, people would, you know, wemubera musango, or like you brought something, they would use a lot of riddles to sort of tell you like, this is our culture. And so for me, for me when I write and when I use it to inform, you know, for me everything is politics, generally. I think even my private life is just really political. And because there's, I think, yeah, the personal is political. I mean, that's a feminist thing. We all know that the personal is political. So for me, I don't look at it like, oh, I'm writing and I'm, you know, writing about the president. But if what the president does is affecting me, eventually I'll have to write about it, also something about it. My writing is a bit tending now towards academic, which is like really bad.
Why is it bad? Why is it bad?
In a way, I used to enjoy when, you know, you had all that, because academic has all these things, there's a theory to follow, you should have read something and then you come up with your work. But I think for me, we can all do it because we are all creative. The way I look at creative arts is that everyone can do it really. But most of us don't have the time to actually engage with it, because it's about using maybe words or pictures or stuff and putting them together creatively. The thing I like about like Bobi Wine, for example, is that his music speaks to what he's doing, which makes it easier for even the person. You know, when you can't explain to someone police brutality, you know that word brutality, then Bobi Wine will sing, you know, you know, those things. And then we're like, eh, okay, you know, it's just votes, we should not take sides. But if I came and said, you know, disband the police, the other day we were talking about disband the police, you know, the person down there is not going to understand. So I think for the creative artist, that's now your job. How do you use music, dance, words, like poems and the like, to actually bring this message to people, for them to understand and engage meaningfully
What
with
are
politics.
the other ways? Because you speak about poetry, there's writing, there's singing and dance and drama. What are the other ways in which people can explore creative arts to speak about social justice issues?
I think there is drawing. For me, actually, it's just, it could even be like rearranging a table in a different way, in a way that speaks to me. For me, I think it's just using what you have to creatively portray a message in a way that someone else would not do it. So a lot of it, though, is from the platform of media.
Yeah.
You see it on TV and the like. But I think even
Like
in
how
our
we're
own
doing Black No
spaces,
Sugar.
yeah, like how we're doing Black No
Exactly.
Sugar.
Yeah.
You know, maybe this could be a creative art.
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that maybe hold people back is they don't know how to start, or maybe they are afraid. What are the challenges to expect when because like I said, art has often been an enemy of, you know, of politics, or the way people view art. My grandmother passed on years ago. Professor Rose Mboa was an artist. She was a feminist, she was a poet, she was an actress, she was many things. Yeah? She was an artist all around. And I know that she used to use her art to speak against the brutal, military regime at that time, and a lot of people that she used to work with were abducted that time. She used to have people in her house hiding there and things like that. So that kind of, she was just an artist, nothing nothing so big, or she wasn't a political aspirant or anything, but these are things that threatened, or the government looked at as a threat. So what are the other challenges? And I know that Bobi Wine is dealing with that as well. What are the other challenges that artists have to deal with?
Well, you talked of everything. The personal is also political, yeah? So I think artists, when you start to engage as an artist, it consumes the whole of you, you know? Art consumes the whole of you. So it becomes your lifestyle, it becomes your religion, it becomes your circle. Because most artists find themselves out of the formal workspaces. So if you're out of the formal workspace, where do you belong? You don't have an employee, you don't have an association, you're just an artist. So your belonging usually is going to be with society. You're going to belong with society. And So the challenge in that, I don't know, when you say what challenges to expect.
Like, if I write, for example, I say I want to write a think piece in the papers. I want to be an opinion, what do they call them? People who write those op-eds in the papers. Should I fear for my life? Like, those, I know that there are things that people think about. That I cannot talk about certain things because what if they come for me? I don't have a platform as big as Bobi Wine's. I'm just a, regular person who has an art to like, what are those things to fear or to look out for, and how to deal with them? Like, you personally, do you feel threatened?
Well, okay, maybe what I'm struggling with right now mentally is, rather than looking at the challenges, because like when you ask me what are the challenges, I can't think of like, okay, now as an artist, these are the challenges you should expect, but I can tell you how you operate and how, like, the space that you operate in cushions you or exposes you. So if I'm to follow with my example of an artist belonging to society, in society, you don't have, usually artists don't have attachments of class, of tribe, of, income status. They are free people, they can connect with whomever. They'll be friends to the rich, the poor, the politician, the opposition. So somehow that cushions them, and it enables them to be independent, to speak without fear. So an artist can come up and abuse Museveni in a song, but you who is a professor, you may not go and publish a paper with the same exact words and put it out there. Yeah. But the artist will do it in a poem and put it out there. Yes, some have been arrested, like Stella Nyanzi. Yeah, but then again, you see the kind of response to their arrest is not ordinary. It's not like, she abused the president. No, she's being artistically expressive. Yeah. Let her be. That is her right. So I feel like artists, we have that, we're a bit cushioned, and when you mentioned earlier that we've been enemies to the state, it is true, we've been enemies to the state, but we've also been very close friends to the state. Yeah. If you look at political campaigns, usually they'll engage artists. Why? Because they know the power that artists have of attracting everyone, the power that they have of saying anything, of instilling either hope or building things. What is a full figure? Yeah.
The power they have of saying anything.
Yeah,
when you say something like that, I'm like, yeah, that's full figure, man. She's tired.
So yeah, there might be quite a number of challenges, but I think for the artists, when you set out, it's more of like the freedom, the immense freedom that is out there for you to just do whatever you want and not have a fear, because you don't feel that fear the way other people feel it. You may know the fear that is there in expressing something bad, but the artist doesn't know, because they are cushioned from all these societal categorizations.
Yeah. But then again, in Uganda, there are artists that actually decide that they don't want to speak towards police brutality. And that's actually, we hear them all the time when they say, Nze, ndiwo just kuyimba. I'm here just to sing. This thing of politics.
What's that civil song that caused
leave civil songs. Now there are people who are nowhere.
That song in 2016, they had so many artists.
Now is, I think it's Tubonga now. But there are people now who are nowhere, even with comedians. Recently, a comedian came up and said, I'm not in that stuff of, being political. Mine is to come here and make people laugh.
Is that a problem, that they are apolitical?
Yes.
That artists.
For me, I think it's a problem.
Their rejection of politics is based on putting me in NRM or people power, or saying this is politics. But if we're to look at politics grandly, like you'll find, let me say, Catherine Kusasira is singing about Abasaja and how they're treating women and what kind of freedom women have over their sexuality. That is a political issue. It's a huge political issue that can cause turmoil in the whole country, So if this woman is addressing the fact that, women, like we're actually telling you this, then that's a political issue, because look at the mad bill. How long has it been in Parliament, and how long has it been debated?
Let's not talk about that bill.
So
it makes me sad. I'm always like.
So I think they choose to disassociate with that this politics of parties, but then in the broader sense.
But also, I also feel uncomfortable with the point that they don't associate with, because if they don't engage with it, because if we're to look, for example, at police brutality, who is creating this police brutality? It didn't just come out of the blue, yeah? Why aren't you speaking about it? Because when you stay there and I'm not speaking about it, if I speak about it, people will say I belong to people power, or if I don't speak about it, then where do you fall? Like,
and
say something.
It's actually
it's
the fear. I think there's a time, I think in Kenyatta's rule, when Ngugi wa Thiong'o and all other like artists were actually, they would arrest you and they would give you like life imprisonment. So artists stopped creating because, I mean, you're scared for yourself. As an artist, at the end of the day, you still have a family and all these other things. The same applies to us, you know, the elite. Like, anyone would be scared to actually create in a space where they are being arrested. If Stella Nyanzi was arrested for that long, if I had the idea to do that, I would be scared, because at the end of the day, the state has the authority to actually put me behind bars. And so, and also, I don't want to say that they are non-partisan, because if you know, if regimes changed, I know that the people the other side, the very artists the other side, will change to this side. So one, I think they are playing a game of resources. You know, who is funding me? Because also it's very hard to create. Not even just to create, but there are so many things and people don't value, you know, creating in Uganda in most cases. You know, if you wrote someone a poem, how much money? Just, you know, think about yourself standing next to someone and saying, I've written a poem, and then there's some other guy there who has constructed a table. Chances are, you know, because our mind doesn't think like brain power is power. And so, one, if they don't give up and they still engage, they will look at still, where am I getting the resources from? And that's very important to understand, that artists are still like us. They play the same games that people in society actually play. In some cases. Now, there are a few cases where people are like, I mean, let me just say, but also, what does it mean to be a Stella Nyanzi, for example? What does it mean to throw caution to the wind and say, you know, like, write that stuff, Because, you know, at the end of the day, I still live in this society. Actually, if I said that, because for some of us, our parents are priests even, like, how do you, you know, how do you associate yourself? So there are trade-offs that they have to do on a daily basis, especially when engaging with state politics. There is the wider politics, which we all engage in, but then there is the state politics that comes from the state directly to us. And no one is not scared of getting arrested. I think you just say, you know, this is who I am, but how many people can
I'm really
do
looking
that?
forward to a day when we are not afraid, because I think that's
For you, are you not afraid? You're
I
sending your friends who are musicians guns.
No, I feel like they have more. They hold, you know, some power that I don't have. Yeah. So I wanted to ask, what is the impact of art on politics? Like, do I just like what is the impact of a poem, for example, on how on social discourse, on political narratives and things like that? How do we interact with that?
Well, I think the artist vocalizes whatever the society wants to say. So if, let me say, we have, we had Corona. Let me use Bobi Wine again, since he's the most outstanding artist right now. Yeah. So we had Corona, we had the issue of Corona. And then you get an artist to sing about it. It's not like other people are not writing, publishing books.
Down, which I really like, but
that's happening in the room. I like that song, but let's not get into it.
Yeah, people are making media campaigns and doing everything. But then the artist can become the unified voice of all people, of all these different engagements through their song, you know, because they're going to do a song and everyone is going to be singing it and they're going to play it on media. It's fun, you can dance to it, the words are rhyming, but then at the back of it there's still a message. Yeah, so I think that's the purpose of the artist, to become the voice. Or if you look at the paintings that people do, you see like the different paintings in different eras have a certain vibe that they communicate, you know. So if people are living in a time where personal freedom is allowed, people dress however they want, they write what they want, they paint what they want. You can see that in the kind of art that they put out. And then you can tell that in this time, the people of Uganda had a certain sense of fear, or they were more liberated, or they were hippies, so I think they reflect society back like they reflect society to the rest of the world. You know, like this is the atmosphere in this area. This is the feel.
Do you feel like for example, when we were speaking about Catherine Kusasiland, you know, singing that song of Enkula ya Tax, yeah? Like, and there are so many songs about, you know, women and men relationships, men going on safari and what, you know, things like that. But do you feel like they have an impact or on our relationships, for example, or on how men treat women? If artists are singing about sexual harassment, or which I have not yet seen, but do you feel like it would have a positive impact on the society?
Yes, I actually think that we take a lot of...
Or do you feel like it does? Because what ways has that been?
I think we take a lot of things from art, first of all. All the things that I know about love, my mother never sat me down and taught me. I saw in movies, I saw in songs. So for me, love is like taking care of me, you know, surprising me with flowers at work. That stuff that we see in movies and that we see in songs and that we read in Mills and Bones. So like, actually, I could say that every single thing that we have in our lives is created by the art around us, and the things that we read, the things that we see, the things that when you pass a billboard and, you know, the woman is kneeling and it's not like weird. But if you see a man kneeling and then the woman giving the woman food, you're like, interesting, what's this about? Yeah. So you take a look back because it's not something that you usually see. So I'd like to think that it has an effect on our social discourse and the way that we relate with other people.
Have you seen ways in which it has?
Yes, like we've been talking about politics first of all. I want to say that sometimes people just listening to music takes them to the streets to actually, you know, fight. There is Black Lives Matter, which has so many songs around it and so much art, and people actually bringing like flowers to art that people have created. There are so many examples around the world, and so for me, art is something that if we are doing anything, you know, it should not be something that misses, because it breaks down, you know, racial, age, like it breaks down all those social categorizations that we think that matter. Because I will listen to Bobi Wine or Bebe Cool. You know, even I don't like that guy. I don't like Bebe Cool and his character. But, you know, sometimes his music is nice. But I just have to say, I won't listen Munange because I don't believe in his ideologies. But the music is nice. So even that, you know, it creates a unification for us. Yeah. And therefore, that means that it can break down a lot of things that we don't think that it can break down. And that's why when states are more military, they step down on artists. They tend to, you know, UCC now will tell you if you want to write anything on social media, then you have to pay.
I remember them saying that artists have to pay for them to come to the I'm like...
And then so you have to ask yourself, where does this come from? Why do I have to write a message on social media and pay? Because they are trying to keep you in line. You can't just create content, because that content has an effect on people, and they don't want that effect to happen.
Yeah. So I do see how you're saying that art does have an effect on people, but I want to know, like, are there examples to show how it has? For example, when you talk about a billboard, I mean, I see a lot of advertising on, you know, it's the women in the cooking oil adverts, in the soap adverts, you know, all these things. So they're just reflecting what's already existing in the society and not communicating what it probably should be.
Think about the stigma around HIV/AIDS and Fide Bongole. Just that's like a concrete example, really, because there was all this stigma. Think about, okay, Magic Johnson is like a sportsman, really. But think about the effect that such songs had, one, to break down the barriers, because also we put artists on a pedestal. We admire them, they are our role models, so we listen to whatever they put out. But that's like a concrete example of just one man creating so much effect around HIV/AIDS, you know, saying, treat them like, you know, like everyone else, you know, love them like everyone else, Kafero and the like. I think there are many examples of musicians in Uganda particularly that have actually done that. We also have now artists like Spire, I think, and Ongon. I see these things like on social media, and people are always like, yeah, and it's funny. So when you laugh, you're like, but what is this communicating to me? And, you know, like I said, if you see them being clamped down on, you just know there is something that they are communicating that people don't usually want to sort of hear. With gender, I think I haven't seen so much around gender, but let me say like Enkola ya taxi. You know, and that's as a song, and Enkola ya taxi. If you want to go, then, you know, and that is the freedom that women get from actually listening to songs. Say, "Wobo yagala ngogenda." If you want to stay, you stay, because manya newe bansula kutoiba noda. So it's okay. You know, I'm money. And so in an unintended way, and by the way, people don't have these conversations, but me, I do with people, and people are like excited about the fact that the song has come out. And you know, if you want, you go. And so you're not seeing it like that, because you'd rather see a policy like marriage and divorce, right, coming up. But here down in other people's circles, people are already seeing that discourse around divorce is already changing to empower women to actually seek out new relationships and leave the old ones. Right?
Maybe just to add on that, on the impact that artists have, I think artists also have an economic impact, and nationally towards the country as a whole. I'll give an example of DJs in Uganda. We have the Nyege Nyege brand, the Campires and the Dalcom. So it's a brand that has been created, and these are female artists, and they are good, and they are going around the world playing, spreading the vibe of Uganda across. So in return, what are we going to get back? We're going to get back recognition as a country that has fun people, that has, you know, exciting things to do. So you have more festivals wanting to be hosted here. You have the Mama Awards going to be hosted here. You look at the adverts. Who is in the adverts for the Mama Awards? You have these DJs. You have the artists. So in the group of artists that you have become the thing that you show off to other nations, or that expose your culture and also expose how well you're doing, and then they can attract opportunities to your country. So it may not be seen as a direct, like, artists are contributing economically to the GDP, but they're bringing tourists, and they're bringing in dollars and euros and pounds.
Are there key issues that you feel artists need to talk about more, or need to address more, that we are not seeing enough of?
One, I think GBV is one of those. I know Chameleon did a song that actually people play everywhere. I think it's called Jamila. And it's so old. But you know, like on every campaign, people use it. And it was a touching song. Like, why don't you leave? Why, you know, and okay, I'm sure people watched it and it touched them to actually change their lives. Because the thing about art is that it speaks to an individual. Like, okay, it speaks to society as a whole, but it speaks to me. And when it speaks to me, I'm not going to come and tell all of you that it has spoken to me. So it's so hard to gauge what change it has actually created. Because it's speaking to me as an individual. I'm like, Bani, I like that song. It has taught me something. And I move on. Now, there is people like Fide Bongole, like we've said, that are able to influence many individuals that then create the change that we can actually see around issues. I think GBV is one of those. I'm thinking also brutality. I don't know, state brutality. I would understand why, but
what's his name? Mainja.
He did.
Do some.
But then that also led him to a lot of, you know, being arrested, and then he got scared. Now he's on another side. I do understand why they don't, but I think that eventually when the state is, you know, art is the only thing that people have access to. And you're their voice, so eventually you have to voice out the things that people wouldn't be able to voice out ideally.
What comes to mind maybe is community. I feel like we need to address the issue of community. How do we build community around ourselves, and how do we engage with our communities? Because I think that apart from those artists who are engaging with political parties or with churches and NGOs, most of the artists are left out of community. So they're doing things on their own. The painter is doing his painting and putting it in a shop to sell it, but it's not really attached to the community. Like, how do we create that attachment to community? NGOs do it so well. You find like there's a project of, oh, we are doing women's development, blah, blah, blah. So these women are going to produce these things and then we're going to sell them. Blah, blah. So you can see that there's a story to it. Yeah. But most of our artists, they are torn away from society. So some of them cannot even be useful in a political struggle because no one knows them, no one knows their impact or their power. So
is it because
I feel
do people understand it? Like, I feel like when you say music, people maybe would understand music because, you know, you can be entertained by music. When it comes to reading, how many people read or make time to read and understand? There was a point in life where I was also reading for entertainment, not to comprehend and understand what I am reading. When you speak about poetry, how many people understand poetry? My introduction to poetry was so weird. I used to think it was all AIDS, yeah. Like, you know, like we are in the, like, how do I do we understand it?
So if you're to connect that to like if you're to bring in the issue of community, why we don't read or why we're not buying books is because we are so torn away from the writers. How often do you engage with a writer or what they are writing or what they're working on? Very rarely, until the book is published. Then you're like, oh, so-and-so has published a book. But if I'm to use like maybe, and sometimes you say these things and they seem like very textbook answers, but they are real. Like if you're to go back to the old days when you had like storytelling around the fireplace. So in that engagement of community, a story is growing with the rest of society. So the story grows and then the people own it. So if there is any kind of production, let me say you're going to stage something about a play that has developed from that kind of community engagement, it's going to have a different impact as opposed to someone who goes and creates on their own, using their own influences and then comes to stage it back to society. So if artists can find ways of being so linked to the communities within which they live, then they can sprout and grow and then get more influence, you know. And one of the practical ways to do this is to have not associations in the sense of go and register, take membership fees, what, but artists in the community should know each other. The visual artists and the musicians and what should find a way of collaborating without waiting for NGOs to put out a project call for funding and what. So if we can have more of that, I feel like that, you know, the impact of artists and the nature of the work that they produce is going to go up.
Are there platforms to which you speak about NGOs offering platforms to different kinds of artists to, you know, show their work and project their work? What other platforms are available to artists?
I would say homes. Why homes? Because, well, you have a home. If you have a home, you have space. You can cook something. You can make a cup of tea. Invite your fellow artists to come over. Do a jam session. It doesn't have to be commercial. It can just be, okay, this afternoon we're having a session at my house. Come over, bring tea or bring bread, whatever. Meet, gather, create something, because also that enables you to open up and be artists. You guys don't go to work every day. You don't have Baba AGMs. So when are you going to gather and develop and, you know, expand your reach? So yeah, I think more artists, and here I'm speaking directly to the artists. I mean, engage, invite your fellow artists to your homes, create something from your home, and that thing is going to grow, and society will be more involved in what you do, so that you're not so distanced from them.
And which platforms are you sharing your work, which we need to read, by the way, which you keep saying it's bad, but we need to. We need to.
I think the biggest thing about artists is the same thing that we activists go through, is that, you know, you need to be paid, and that takes it away from the art of being an artist and an activist. So if I'm an activist, let me say for gender, I don't think anyone needs to create for me a platform. Do I believe that gender inequality is an issue? Do I go out with my friends? I go to church. So like generally anyone that I engage with knows that Tendo is a feminist and this is what she likes to do. I believe art should be the same way. You know, engage in church, engage like in every other space that you're in, because it's the belief in the art that you're creating that should then push you to make the money. But now for us, we go backwards. It's the money that pushes you to create the art. That's why she said NGOs, you know, you
I think
apply.
because
and they're like,
honestly, you need money to.
There is a-
in
there
some
is-
in many ways
but
you
it's
need
Yeah,
money to
limited.
create.
It's very limited when
that's
money
the
is the
thing.
driver.
It's a dilemma. There is a lady who does activism around HIV/AIDS. Usually wears her things, like dresses. She wears her pills and Barbara. I'm forgetting her other names. It starts with K. You know, who, you know, she just moves around like that with her drugs everywhere. She does that thing where she shocks people into just seeing who she is and removing the stigma around ARVs and the like by taking them even in the taxi. You know, you would think that she needs an NGO to give her platform. No, but does she believe that there should be this stigmatization of AIDS? Yes. Does she do what she can do to create, to remove it? Yeah. And that's it for me, I think.
Thank you guys for sharing your thoughts on how we can use our art to shape political narratives and social discourse. If you're out there and you need something to create, just start. I think that's always the thing. Just start, share with even the closest person you're with at home. Just to remind you, we are at Aleph Book Cafe. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and leave us a comment. See you in the next episode.